Hello, fellow gamers, and welcome to the Video Gamers Podcast. Gaming has been around for decades and has advanced from the simple days of Pong and text-based games to cutting-edge graphics and cordless virtual reality. From the original Atari to PCs that would make NASA jealous, the evolution of gaming is a sight to behold. But along the way, there have been some true moments of greatness and some humongous leaps forward. Today, we're going to be breaking down some of the biggest leaps in gaming, but first, some introductions are in order. I am your host, Josh, and joining me, he thinks the Nintendo Power Glove was the pinnacle of gaming technology, and he's not wrong. It's Ryan.
Dude, you almost felt like a superhero or a genie. Like you could do anything with the Power Glove, man.
Dude, I wanted that Power Glove more than anything in life, dude.
Me too.
And I knew it was never going to happen. So.
Yep.
And joining us, it wouldn't surprise me if he nominates the Wii U balance board and the Wii Fit ring as the true pinnacle of gaming. It's John.
I had considered it, but I think I might go Power Glove, actually. Yeah, that totally slipped my mind for this episode, man. My friend Spud had one. That was the coolest thing ever.
You had a buddy that had a Power Glove?
Yes, and we never were able to play a single game with it, but just the fact we had it was awesome.
Hold on, I want to go back. Did you say you had a friend named Spud?
Yeah, Spud.
That's what I got.
You know what's funny? He's a cop now. But like when he was growing, he was called Spud because when he was born, he was the size of a little potato.
Oh, dang.
Yeah.
Well,
gotta love those lifelong nicknames, man.
right?
Yeah, grew up to be a good guy.
Well, welcome in, everybody. We have a fantastic episode for you today. I am hyped to talk about this one. This was a fun look back at gaming.
This is a fun episode, man.
Man, we have come a long way. But we're going to get back to something that we've been wanting to do for a little while now, and this has kind of been put off to the side. But now it's time to bring this back to the forefront, and that is our quick questions that come in from our epic supporters. It's been a minute, but we're back to doing these, so sorry for the delay, but we did get a little sidetracked with some of the cool episodes, the interviews and stuff like that we've been doing lately. But let's kick this off. This one comes in from Night Wizard 63, longtime Epic supporter, awesome member of the community. And his question is, what is a game that you've played that was so bad that you actually gained nostalgia from it to the point where you'd never play it again because of how bad it is, but you miss it? For example, mine is Goat Simulator. It's such a bad and dumb game, but I miss it sometimes. This is a good question because we've all had those games, guys.
Yeah.
So I've got mine. I don't. For anybody who grew up in the Sega Genesis generation.
Ooh, that's me.
Yep,
That's me.
Yep. Sega CD, awesome.
Oh.
When I got my Sega CD and I got it at the tail end of its life, it came packaged with a game called Sewer Shark.
Sewer Shark?
Oh yeah. And you'd have to go look at YouTube. There's no way I could do it justice visually, but what an abomination. At the time I was happy to play it, but it is by all measures a terrible game.
Oh man. I've never heard of that. Now you got me curious.
Yeah, I never heard of that one either.
Yeah. What about you, Ryan? What you got?
I got one, and I guess in the moment, just because of it might have been a little revolutionary, with what else has come out and the timing and stuff like that, but I'm going with GoldenEye, dude.
Whoa!
Yeah, and you know why? Because Perfect Dark was 100 times better. GoldenEye freaking sucks. Go back and try to play it.
That is the hottest of hot takes.
Go back and try to play it. GoldenEye sucks. It's nostalgia. That's the only thing that saves it. And Perfect Dark was 100 times better.
This is what I get for giving Ryan a nice intro. You know how I'm always picking on Ryan, and then he's like, "Oh man, why are you always?" And then I give you a nice intro finally, and then you come out with saying the GoldenEye.
Yeah,
that's nostalgia.
Are you saying
nostalgia?
Okay, but are you saying that it was even bad for the time?
In the moment, because it was kind of the first of that era. It was something that's new, but it's not a game that it was done 10 million different ways, 10 million times better. So the game itself is really not that good of a game. It was just something new.
Oh,
Wow.
Yeah.
This podcast
Yeah,
is done.
deal with it.
This is over.
I'm gonna get so much hate on Discord right now.
Oh, you're getting some hate from me right now, man.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, people are entitled to opinions, but that's just wrong.
Yeah, that's just a bad opinion. Bad opinion. GoldenEye at the time was incredible. Now, I get that you can look back and say,
You
dude,
can't
this
even
game
aim.
didn't-
You have to
What?
hold the Z to like, and you can't move
Dude,
at the same time.
the campaign, the multi. All right, Ryan. Well, everybody in the world knows what to think about you right now. So my game is Stardew Valley. No, I'm just kidding. When we talk about a game that is historically bad, and I don't say this just for the memes, I was there when this game came out. It is the old E.T. game for the Atari.
Oh yeah.
I mean, this game has actually had documentaries done on it. I remember, I legitimately remember being excited. I went to, E.T. is one of the first movies that I ever saw at a movie theater when I
Great
was
movie.
a child. It's fantastic. And so when the game came out, I remember being super hyped, and that game was so bad. It was unlike anything else in the world, but there is this weird sort of nostalgia for it with seeing E.T.'s little weird head and neck thing and dropping down into those pits and stuff like that, man. I mean, talk about an abomination of a video game, but it's weird how those can stick with you, man.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah, my cousin Roy and I put in a lot of hours on that, and I could not tell you how to play that game. No.
yeah, I don't remember the ins and outs of the gameplay other than that it was terrible, but it does kind of give you this weird nostalgia, man. I mean, I think it's good when any game stands out. That's the takeaway. Whether it's good or bad, like, you're going to have a memory of that. I think I'd rather hate a game than have a game that I think is just completely mid, blasé. It's like, it's like every other game in the world. It's like, why would I play this? At least with the bad games, I get memories from them.
You didn't exactly have a lot of choices back then. I think there was like a total of 6 different games that were in existence at the time. So
I don't know, man. Oh, well, maybe that was the Atari 2600 that I got. But I tell the story that my dad had a buddy that knew how to burn proms. So I had every Atari game in existence as a child, which I fully attribute to my gamer ADHD now too. So
Yeah.
it started me young. So But awesome. Listen, if you want to be able to ask a question for this podcast, you can help support the show and ask us one of your burning questions. If you head over to multiplayersquad.com, you can sign up to support the show, keep this podcast rolling, and ask a question you want to know the answer to. So, guys, before we get into the biggest leaps in gaming, I do have a question because, it's been busy, man. I kind of like this, and it's funny because we've been chatting, but like, you guys been playing anything interesting lately?
Oh yeah. Yeah. We got a superhero John here reaching out his tree branches to everyone. He's got us a playtest key for Mandragora, and dude, I'm kind of liking it. Like, we'll save it all because I may make some videos on it and stuff. But I've been digging. It's been a while since I've played a Metroidvania, and it's been a cool little experience so far.
Was it Morgal that put that game on our
Yep.
radar?
I think
it
so,
was
yeah.
Morgo. I think we've been saying
Morgo.
this, but you know what? At this point, you know what? You're Morgal forever, buddy.
Yeah, they told me they don't care. They're like, yeah, whatever. It's
Oh man, John, what about you?
well, I'm playing Dredge, which is a game that's that Ace, our indie
Solid.
co-host, turned me on to, which is interesting because I'm kind of using it as my pre-sleep kind of cozy game, just to kind of like wind down for the day or whatever, even though it's like also a horror game.
Creepy, yeah.
And then there's been a lot of talk about feudal Japan with Shadows coming out and stuff, and so I went back into a backlog to discover for the first time a little samurai game called Ghost of Tsushima that nobody ever talks about it. I am holding the whole Discord community accountable for not letting me know what an awesome game this is. It is awesome. So good. I haven't had this much fun playing a game since like Spider-Man 2, where I'm like, all I want to do is play it. But man, what a fun little game.
Very, very little known game, probably flying under the radar for a lot of people.
I heard there might be making a sequel too.
So I mean, I may
Must
be.
have
We're not
done
sure if
okay.
the game did well enough.
What about you?
one of the
Josh?
best samurai games ever made for sure.
Oh, dude, so good.
Yeah.
What are you
It
playing,
really
Josh?
is. So it's funny because, and I absolutely love this, but I had one of our community members, People Wonder, awesome supporter of the show and friend of the podcast as well, DM me and say, hey man, you have absolutely got to check this game out. And he sent me the Steam link for a game called As We Descend. And you know, everybody knows I love these kind of roguelike card-based games, but with a little bit of flair to them or something. And I actually had some free time last night, so you know what, let me check this out. And I'm digging it, man. It is this really neat roguelike based card game, but the combat is somewhat unique in it. You kind of have the city exploration thing where you can like send these envoys to different parts of the city and stuff like that. So really got its hooks in me. I'm just playing the demo, but I'm 3 hours into this demo, and this is one that is now like on my wish list, and I'm having a lot of fun with. So love it when people personally put games in front of us and say, hey, I think you guys might like this. Check this out, because I never would have known about this game otherwise. And now I've got like, you know, a solid 3 hours into this that I'm just loving at this point too. So yeah. This is why I love our community, man. Is like you start to know people, you start to trust people's opinions, you kind of know what people like or don't like. You know, we failed John apparently by not putting Ghost of Tsushima in front of him.
I'm calling that out. I think we've talked about it a ton on the Discord.
No. I don't believe it.
Also, I'm pretty sure this was Ryan, one of your picks in the games like that you wish you like the memory wipe games where you're like, dude, I wish I could play this again for the first time.
I even busted a haiku out.
Yeah, oh, yeah. I did. Now I can't. You did not come up with that haiku all on your own. You had to have run this through ChatGPT.
Hold on,
Ryan is not the haiku kind of guy.
Oh gosh,
give me a haiku right now, Ryan, about this episode. Biggest leaps in gaming. Go ahead.
How much? I have to meditate first. What are you talking about?
Oh, see, do you even know how many syllables a haiku has to have?
What isn't it like?
You don't meditate, you reflect.
Is it like 5, 5, 3?
Nope. See?
I forget. I don't know. I know how to type Chat GPT in.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, you went the extra mile to ask for a haiku to be made for you. So
yeah, we know how your intros are made too. So
that's 2 strikes, Ryan.
I know,
you got GoldenEye and you got haiku.
Yeah.
One more, buddy.
That's it. It's over. Oh, buddy, you know, it's funny we talk about AI, but what we are about to talk about are the biggest leaps in gaming. So this is a broad category, and I kind of like the fact that we left this a little bit more open-ended, but what we are going to be diving into are the things in gaming that we think just catapulted things forward. It can be a game that you think is so far ahead of its time that you know, that you're like, dude, this was a glimpse into the future of gaming. I'm sure there are probably going to be a console or two mentioned today, but it could be that leap forward in console technology, you know, gaming tech, gaming peripherals, you know, I mean, all these different things. Like I said, we really didn't put a lot of rules on this other than what do you think catapulted gaming forward in some way? It could be the invention of a new genre. It really is, you know, up to you as far as that goes. But we did not talk about this. We did not share our lists with each other. We kind of all came up with our own ideas on this. And we thought, you know, this is just going to be so much fun to actually take a look at how far gaming has come. So, John, let's start with you, buddy, because I'm curious on this one, where you're going to go with this. But let's start off with one of your takes on what you think the biggest leaps forward in gaming are.
Well, so I kind of shared my hand a little bit, but I'll just expand on it. So when we were talking about the game that had the bad nostalgia, it was the Sega CD game. For me, Sega CD represented one of the biggest leaps forward in gaming. I believe it was one of the first CD-ROM based console. I'm technically a peripheral added onto the Genesis. May not have been the first one, but it was the first one that was like really commercially available in the United States for a price point that you could get. Like there was Neo Geo and TurboGrafx 16 where, you could
Nobody
get
could
them.
afford the Neo Geo.
For like $1,000 or whatever at the time. But Sega CD was a cool concept in that you could add it to an existing 16-bit console. And for me, it was like, oh my gosh, look at the graphical change. Because you were going from basically Sonic the Hedgehog / Streets of Rage type, you know, pixel graphics to literally full motion, you know, video. And So games that represented that, for instance, are like Sewer Shark, like I mentioned, that was a pre-packaged game that came with it. And then Ground Zero Texas, which was a Night Stalker. I don't know if anybody remembers any of these like weird, obscure Sega CD games, but it was literally just people, full motion video captured on CD-ROM that you interacted with. And for me, it was a profound thing. And you got full dialogue with it too. You got people speaking in full sentences. You weren't having to read these sort of text cues anymore. And it was really cool. Ultimately it didn't do well as a platform. There weren't a whole lot of really great games for it, but I think it was a fundamental step forward for gaming in general as an industry.
Yeah. I owned a Sega Genesis. I didn't want to have a Sega Genesis, but I was a dumb kid and bought one of those instead of an
That's
NES.
what we had too.
Yeah.
Man, I love my Genesis.
I'm glad that I had it in hindsight, because it definitely like broadened my gaming perspectives. While everybody else in the world was playing the Nintendo, I was like, oh yeah, well, what about Alex Kidd, and Phantasy Star and stuff like this? And people are like, what are you even talking about? And I'm like, well, I got a Genesis.
We got blood in Mortal Kombat, man. While people were leaking out gray goo when Sub-Zero uppercutted you. We got blood. The Genesis was for the hardcore people, brother.
But it's funny because like the Sega CD was known to about 13 people in the world. Yeah. I feel like I feel like this is one of those things that was one of the least known, probably shortest time span peripherals out there. And it's like the Xbox Kinect, right? Like the Kinect was big for a second, but then like nobody remembers the Kinect anymore.
Yeah.
And I feel like it was one of those things that was like, this seems like a really good idea, but in hindsight, probably not really a good idea. But it is true. I mean, because we were able to load things off of a CD, it really did kind of change how people thought about games. We're going to maybe bring up another console that made the leap to CD-ROM and actually did it the right way and kind of changed gaming going forward on that one. But so the Sega CD. That is not one that was on my list.
that was not on my list either.
Yeah. So, all right, Ryan. Well, what is on your list, buddy?
Oh man. So this one's pretty personal as far as like it was a big leap overall in gaming, in the gaming world as a whole, but it also was something that was significant to me in my kind of gaming, journey. And I'm going with the Source engine from Valve.
Ooh,
so
changed
2004. I remember, and I was playing Half-Life, Counter-Strike, all the old games like that, all the Sierra stuff, and when Valve came around and they busted out this Source engine, and I remember doing this little like play demo and it's just a video, and you can see when I saw the water rippling and the cave and then the look of the character models and everything, I was just blown away. I was like, this is the greatest thing that's ever happened in the world. It'll never get better than this. This is amazing. And it made just such a big difference to where they had map editors that you could use, and you could use the Source engine. And I was designing my own like Half-Life maps in class. And then I'd go home and make secret patches. And like, it just inspired the gaming part of it, or the map design part of it, because the engine was just such a big leap graphically and what they can do. It was just, it was something else.
People talk about Half-Life and they say, man, all you old guys and your nostalgia for Half-Life, what made it so great, right? Like what was so awesome about Half-Life? That was what made Half-Life awesome. Like no game had kind of done what Half-Life did. I mean, you had real-time physics, which was insane. If you hit a crate, that crate crumbled into a bunch of different pieces. You had gravity that actually affected everything. So if you actually chucked something, it would fall as if gravity was affecting it. You had these characters that were running around and taking cover like naturally. So it was almost like that first glimpse into like what AI in a game could be, where you're like, these guys are coming out, they're trying to flank you. And all of that was predicated on the Source engine. I mean, there's even, the fact that you could hop in a vehicle at one point in the game and be like, wait, is this for real? Like I'm going to be able to drive now? And all of that was made possible because of how advanced and ahead of its time the Source engine was. So I think that's a great pick, man.
Agreed. Yeah, Valve itself, I mean, as a company is responsible for so many advancements in the gaming industry. We could probably do a Valve episode.
We could do a few.
Valve's greatest hits.
Yeah.
Yeah, we really could. So I got one that I'm trying to think outside the box a little bit here on this because, you know, I think there's some things that easily come to mind, but there have been a couple things that I thought back to and I went, man, this absolutely was just a massive leap for gaming that we still reap the benefits from to this day. But I'm going to tell you what mine is right after this break.
Hey y'all, Editor Greg here. Bring it in. Let's talk for a minute. If you're tired of all the other toxic hobbies out there and you want to develop meaningful relationships with other gamers, then let me tell you about our Discord. Huge community game nights, giveaways, education and art days, real lifelong friendships, and much more is what makes our Discord better than the rest. Links to join the family can be found at videogamerspod.com. So what are you waiting for? Join today and say hey to everybody. Before I keep y'all too long, I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. Without all of you, this community would not be as incredible as it is today. Now, let's kick back and watch the rest of this episode together.
All cliffhanger episode.
I can't help myself, man.
I love it. It's great, man. It's great.
You know,
it's perfect.
it's like my job as the host, but sometimes you just love your job too, you know? And so it's like, gosh darn it, Josh, you and your stupid cliffhangers, they're not going away, people. I'm not stopping.
It's smart, bro. Keep people listening.
You can't hold me down. All right. So one of my biggest leaps forward and you know, step back in time with me a little bit, boys, because yes, as the elder statesman of this bunch, I don't know that you guys actually remember this, but back in the day when you had an Atari, you had a joystick that went along with the Atari, and people have seen these little icons, but this thing was unwieldy. It was a long stick on top of a square box that had one giant red button, one button, and that was it. And so when you played video games, you had to hold the base. Your entire hand was holding the joystick, and then you would just sit there with your thumb and mash that red button over and over to do whatever it was that you were trying to do. The issue with this is when you only have one button, and you have to dedicate an entire hand to being able to move around on a screen, like it really limited what you could do in a video game. Well, then along comes the Nintendo and it says, listen, we're going to change the way that people interact with their games. We are going to give you a controller and, you know, give you the option to hold this in your hand. And now your thumb controls everything that you need to do movement-wise, which allows you to then have multiple buttons that you can use with your other hand. And I know this seems like such a simple thing, but this changed gaming moving forward. And if you look at the incredible DualSense controller, let's be honest, that's the pinnacle of controllers at the moment, you know, with all the haptic feedback and stuff like that. It is still the same idea. You know, and we mentioned the Power Glove, and as cool looking as the Power Glove was, by all accounts, it was an absolute disaster. It was not made to play video games. It was meant to look really cool. So
still worth it.
Yep.
For me, one of the biggest leaps forward was the fact that we got away from the joystick, and instead of iterating on that and trying to make that better, we got the handheld controller. And I think it's something that we take for granted, man. Like what a way to advance gaming, to put it into your hands and allow you. And then we had the iterations of the shoulder buttons. You know, I think it was the PlayStation or the PS2 that gave you the analog sticks now?
PS2.
You know, where all of a sudden, instead of just the thumb pad, you have these analog sticks. So it's like, okay, well, that's an advancement. But none of those were as big of an advancement as it was going from the old school joystick to an actual controller.
That's a really good pick, man. I like it.
That's solid. That makes, I mean, and you see how far, I mean, there's another industry of these controllers that they're making like super customizable, advanced, extra buttons, you know, on these controllers now. So, you know, it's just a natural progression of things. But that's a good pick.
Yeah. All right, John, we're back to you, buddy.
Okay, so this one is quite a bit newer than my last pick, but it's something that honestly very recently kind of blew my mind. So anybody who's been listening or talking to me for any period of time knows that I'm almost exclusively a console gamer. For whatever reason, I never made the leap to PC. And except for a handful of games. But if I'm being honest, it's probably been 20 years since I've really dedicated any gaming time to PC. It's like Diablo, Command and Conquer were like some of the last games. So mostly console. So my wife and I just moved to Arizona, and we put up this big smart TV in our living room. And I started seeing advertisements in the hub of our Samsung TV that said, play Assassin's Creed, no console needed. Play Ghost of Tsushima, play like new AAA titles, no console needed. And I'm like, what the heck does that even mean? And so I clicked into it one time, and there's several different services, but this was the Xbox service, and it says pair a controller to your TV. And I was like, okay, well, I've got an Xbox controller. Let's hook this up. And from my TV with my console, I was able to control it, go into my Xbox Game Pass, and find any number of very current AAA titles that I could play on my TV with no console. And that advancement is cloud gaming.
Yeah.
And I think it is absolutely incredible. When we had our community gaming night, and I was playing Halo Infinite on my TV with no console. And
you on your TV?
On my TV.
What?
Just my TV with a controller, no PC, stream, no 360, no Xbox. It was incredible to me, man. And I walk on my treadmill and game quite a bit. That's like one of the ways that I just stay active or whatever. And I now have like this whole library of games that I can, just test out willy-nilly without having to lug and hook up a bunch of stuff, man. I just have a controller in my living room. It's awesome.
It's funny you mention that, because if you take a step back and you look at the technology for cloud gaming, this seems amazing. Like, amazing. The fact that people don't need these $2,000 PCs to play these games. You have this access to this vast library where you don't even need an Xbox at that point. It's weird to me, because this is one of those examples of a phenomenal idea that I'm not sure people know what to do with. Because if you look at like Google Stadia, like we covered Google Stadia on the show years ago, and we came out and we said this is not going to catch on. Like, as neat as it is, Google Stadia is not going to be successful. And sure enough, it wasn't, and it failed. And it's just this weird thing where, in theory, the idea that people don't have to buy these super expensive pieces of hardware. John looks like he's drinking a beer every time he takes this.
No, I'm trying to promote this. I know. Diet. I can say this because this is the name of it, but Diet Cock and Bull ginger beer.
Oh.
If they ever want to sponsor
the animals, people, these were animal references.
Yeah, I drink a toxic amount of this stuff. This is really, really, I don't drink a lot of alcohol. This is non-alcoholic, but oh my God,
is not,
so good. It's so good.
And listen, if you want to see what the heck we're talking about, by the way, we have video for anybody that is not aware. If you're listening on Spotify, check it. Go to the switch to video option, and then you can see that John was indeed drinking a beer during recording. It just happened to be a ginger beer. And yes, those were animal names that he referenced.
No calories, guys. No calories.
Oh, man, this is great. But yeah, cloud gaming is one of those things where it is a masterful piece of technology. It's weird that it hasn't been more widely adopted to me, because in practice, it sounds incredible, and the technology behind it to be able to stream these games directly to people in real time, because think about no gamer in the world would play these if there was lag associated with them, and yet they work pretty flawlessly, and yet at the same time, it's just not a super popular thing, man.
Yeah, I have a feeling that there's probably some economic factors behind that. It's almost like, when Tesla was first starting to mass produce electric cars, there was a lot of suppression from the oil industry, not to get political, but there was a lot of suppression because there's an economy based around the status quo. And I think that the same thing exists with gaming. You've got people who produce consoles, people who produce gaming PCs and stuff like that. And if you have something like cloud gaming that could literally make an entire industry obsolete, there's probably some factor there. That's my little tinfoil hat speaking, but
Yeah, I mean it's true. There very likely is something there too. Gamers also, I think, want that console. They want those. I want to feel like this game I own it, that it's in my library, or I have a physical copy or something
That's
like
me.
that. And cloud gaming absolutely crushes that mentality because you don't own nothing. You're just you have a game that you can play and that's it. So
And that's the thing. What if they just decide, oh, that's not in our catalog
Google
anymore,
Stadia.
and they pull your game off?
That was the thing with Google Stadia when it shut down, is all these people that went, dude, like I've been paying for this, what the heck? And then all my save games, all of my progress. And I don't know how they navigated that, but I remember it not being great. So
not well.
Yeah, but I think there's kind of a meritocracy to that. Like people are used to that with cloud streaming services like Netflix. Whether you like it or not, a lot of those shows live and die by the sword. If it gets ratings, it stays on the air. If it doesn't, it's taking up bandwidth and they cut it.
Yeah. No, that's a great pick, man. That was another one that I did not even consider for this, and is an awesome pick. Ryan, what do you have up next?
I'm gonna go with one. It's not a super old one, like some of yours, bud.
Hey, I'm getting there. I'm working my way up through history, Ryan.
I'm gonna go with something that it was another a pretty big thing in my life. I played a ton with former host Paul back when this came out, and then Josh, I know, is a big part of your life, kind of do a detriment at some point, but I'm going with just the explosion of MMOs. MMORPGs.
That's on my list.
That's on your list?
That's on my list.
I figured it would be.
Oh my goodness, man.
99 was EverQuest, and then like 04 is when World of Warcraft came out. I mean, that's, I think, what really made the big jump, and that was a lot more universally kind of played than EverQuest. But EverQuest did start the whole kind of push for that. But what that became and what that did to gaming was it was where you weren't just kind of playing a game, you had a whole nother world. You had another life. You were living there. You had you had almost like a job. You're like, oh yeah, I got to do some crafting and get this stuff, sold at the auction house, and then go do this, and we're meeting up here at this time. It was just something so new and unique to the gaming world where you could be together and live a whole nother like life. It was just something that was crazy,
dude. So I kind of preface mine as the creation of online multiplayer and MMOs.
Yeah.
And it's funny that we both thought about that, because for me, again, I feel like this episode's just making me sound really old. But for me, I remember, and we talked about this the other day in our community, where your buddy's trying to get some people together to do Doom, the original Doom multiplayer, for some kind of achievement.
Oh yeah.
It blew my mind when I was playing Doom and a buddy was able to call in with our dial-up modems, was able to call in to like my computer, and we could actually link up somehow. This was wizardry at the time. And I could see him running around in Doom, and we lost our minds. I mean, we spent the first 10 minutes just walking up to each other and back and being like, is that really you? Is that really you? And he's like, look, I'm going to jump. And then he'd jump, and I'd be like, how is this possible? And so I don't think people realize that the magic that was being able to see your friends moving in a game in real time. So Doom in 1993 was absolutely insane. And I did a little bit of a deep dive to make myself feel even older. And one of the original games, nobody in the world has heard of this, is called MIDI Maze, where you walked through a little 3D maze and you were chasing, it was just spheres. That's all the graphics were some colored spheres, but you would try to shoot at the other sphere that was running away from you. And you could see your little bullet shoot out at this sphere. It's the dumbest thing in the world, but at the time, the fact that you were hunting your buddy down was mind-blowing.
Yeah.
And then you leap forward from Doom in 1993 that blew people's minds to the fact that you could see it. 6 years later, guys, 6 years, you're playing a massive multiplayer online game. You are living in these worlds. Like you said, they became a job. It became a second life. The fact that we went from that to these massive games in 6 years is bananas, dude.
Yeah. There was just nothing like it, man. I felt it too with like Diablo 2. My buddy, he was my best friend in the world. He moved to his dad got a job in Kentucky, and he moved to Kentucky, and we couldn't hang out anymore. And then all of a sudden, we're able to get on and we're able to play Diablo together and chat and run stuff together. And it was such a cool thing, you know, with the advancement of this type of stuff, you know, the online gaming, MMOs, playing WoW together, you know, there's nothing like it.
Are you guys hungry for an MMO? Is there that, like, I get that in our minds, and this isn't a question of would you have time for one. In your brain, do you wish that you had an epic MMO to just get lost in?
Oh yeah.
I do. Like, I want one so bad.
I have never gotten into MMOs. That's
No.
I've tried, you know.
Good for you, John.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's not good.
No,
for me.
I mean that.
I don't know. Like when World of Warcraft came out, and I mean that game sort of has all of the necessary requisite components to be something that I would be really into. You know, it's got the social aspect, it's got the fantasy aspect, there's a humor aspect. It didn't have like there's no end to the game, which I think is probably a strike against it for the way I like to play games. But yeah, something about it never really got me. I will say that if they're able to ever really pull off a Star Wars MMO
They did. It
that
was
is
darn good.
VR and completely immersive, you'll probably never see me again.
Yeah. I do think it's weird. That is the next evolution, in my opinion. I think the next leap forward is going to be when VR is perfected in mainstream,
on my list.
and then somebody has. We'll talk about that in a minute because it's on mine as well. But when somebody can make an actual quality MMO in VR, that's the oasis that everybody has been hoping for, and it will change the world. It
I
absolutely
agree.
will change
To
the
the
world.
oasis.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, that was one of mine. So I'm going to pivot. And you know what? The fact that we're on VR, let's just roll into this, man, because it
There you
sounds
go.
like we all share this one. I have, I wrote it down as a wearable console, aka virtual reality, the Oculus Rift, and then kind of perfected by the Quest. I get that the Rift is more powerful, and we have these kind of wired, higher quality VR headsets, but the Quest made everything accessible. You don't need a supercomputer. You don't need 4 USB ports and cables and, an HDMI running to the back of your head kind of thing. So while it may have dumbed down VR a little bit, I think it made it accessible to everybody in that case. But everybody remembers their first time putting on a VR headset, a modern VR headset. We're not talking about the old Virtual Boy here.
Yeah.
And then just absolutely having your mind blown, man. Why is this not more mainstream? That's the question that it begs my brain, because John, do you have a Quest?
No, I don't. No,
Do you have any VR headset?
I had an Oculus for a while. My old company hired an actor who happened to work for Oculus, and he gave us the grand tour of the Oculus plant there in Seattle, and man, that was incredible. But no, I don't have anything right
Ryan,
now.
when's the last time you actually put your Oculus on and used it?
I put it on and turned it on like a week or two ago.
Really?
And checked. Yeah, I actually to check and see if
still
it needed
worked.
updates. Yeah, and then because I was going to play it later, and then I took it off and I never touched it again.
I have not played my Oculus in probably 6 months, dude.
Yeah.
Honestly,
That's
6 months.
usually what it is. Like you go 4 to 6 months, you'll play it for a week solid, and then you won't touch it again for 5 or 6 months.
Well, so for you two guys, what is keeping you from playing it more?
For
Setup?
me, see, the setup's not. I don't think it's the
I guess-
setup at all, because it's my office is big enough that it's room
That's true.
scale. I can walk around in my office and I don't have to worry about bumping into things. For me, it is that every game feels like it is a cartoon rendition with a gimmicky kind of mindset, right? It's
Yeah.
either this is a shooter where you get to shoot at people, this is a melee game where you swing a sword, or they try to be more advanced where it's like, hey, this is a big game like Half-Life Alyx, one of the most incredible VR experience, but I also get motion sick. So these grand games I tend to shy away from because they make me want to puke.
That's me too.
I think if I had to say what is holding it back, it is the motion sickness thing. I think that there's a lot of other reasons why people don't pick these things up, but the thing I hear from most people about why they don't do VR gaming more is the motion sickness thing.
Yeah.
I don't have the motion sickness issue with VR. For me, it's just that more to what you were just saying, Josh, that a lot of the games seem gimmicky, or there's one control dynamic that is dominant throughout the game.
Right.
Like Beat Saber, but I mean that works. Beat Saber works because it's a rhythm game that happens to work really well. But you know, I guess I haven't played Alex. You know, I've heard that's a really good game. Maybe I should make time for it. But for me,
it's insanely good.
If
It gives you the glimpse into the future, man. It really does.
You can borrow mine for like 6 months. I won't use it. I won't be using it.
deal.
Ryan's like,
deal.
you can just hold on to it till I ask for it back in like 7 years when it's defunct at that
I'll
point.
get an itch to play some Super Hot again or something.
Yeah, it's crazy because we all agree that the leap forward to VR gaming is worth mentioning. It's just in this weird spot where I think we need higher quality headsets, and along with that, with the higher frame rates and the wider field of view and the capability of playing games on a higher level, some of that motion sickness actually goes away. Like that's one reason that people get motion sick is it's kind of low quality at this point, and that's a lot harder for our brains to kind of handle there too. So, all right, Ryan, did you have VR on your bingo card?
It was one of mine. Yeah,
That's funny. We all agree with that because it is mind blowing, dude. My favorite thing to do is put people into Richie's Plank experience that have never tried VR before because it will like completely blow their minds, and it's just hilarious to watch somebody be like scared to death of heights while they're standing in your living room.
It kept me sane, dude, when I broke my wrist because I couldn't golf for 3-4 months or whatever, and so I just put on the VR set and was doing it one-handed that way, and I kind of felt like I was on the course. I was swinging a club. You could hear the sound. So it's so neat. It's just, there's that motion sickness. It vastly limits the games that I can play.
Yeah, I agree. I have completely lost track of whose turn it is.
It's your turn. It's your turn.
Is it my turn,
Yeah,
really?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
'cause
we
you
segued
mentioned
to VR because we kind of all had it.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. I am going to mention a console, guys, because
baby.
people are going, are you guys ever going to mention a console?
I know which one you're going to choose. It's on my list
do
too.
you now? Do you now? Okay, well, let's see. I am going to mention the console that leapt us forward from 2D gaming to 3D gaming, guys. It is the leap from the Super Nintendo, right? Which, that was a little bit better than the Nintendo. I know John's like, whoa, wait a minute. And no, it's not the PS2, John. It is the leap from the Super Nintendo to the Nintendo 64, guys, and AKA the PlayStation era, because let's be honest, that was the same era. So this was when we went from 2D gaming to 3D gaming. And the call to this, especially with the Nintendo 64, was so many of these Nintendo games. And again, yes, there are a lot of PlayStation games we can mention as well. But I think Nintendo at the time had the more iconic games in this regard. So, we got the 3D Zeldas, we got the 3D Mario games. Super Mario 64 is one of the best games ever made. Now, people are going to go, dude, what? But back in the day, to play Mario in 3D was an incredible experience. We got Resident Evil, where you had this top-down perspective where you were walking around on the screen. Despite Ryan's insanity, we got GoldenEye, which had an incredible campaign where you were James Bond running through 3D tunnels and on these hanging satellite things, and you were shooting guys and things like that. We went from having what they call sprites in gaming, which are these kind of flat pixelated, characters and things, to polygons, and polygons are what changed gaming. So that leap
Hot take,
is second to none.
Not necessarily an improvement. I miss sprites, man. As an old 2D fighting game fan, man.
Yeah, but if you think about the biggest leap forward, right? Like let's go. Like let's just mention PS4 to PS5, right? What's the problem there? Everybody goes, what's the difference? Like, I can play in 4K versus like 1080p. Like, okay, don't get me wrong. I'm a graphics snob. I love 4K, but that's the problem that people are seeing in these newer consoles, right? The Xbox Series X to the Xbox One or whatever. I can't even keep up with the Xbox.
I don't know all the Xboxes either.
So, but the PS4 to the PS5 or even the PS3 to the PS4, right?
Dude, the PS3 to the PS5, there's not a huge,
right.
You can still play Last of Us on PS5 and it's the same exact game and it feels like a modern game.
Yes, exactly. And so, but when you went from the Super Nintendo or the Sega Genesis at the time, maybe with the Sega CD even, right? Let's give it a little bit of an edge there.
Yeah.
And you went to the Nintendo 64 and the PlayStation. This was the leap in technology. This was the mind-blowing leap that people had always wanted in video gaming. And that's one reason that we have nostalgia for those times, right? We always are referencing the Nintendo 64. We're always referencing the Ocarina of Time and Super Mario 64 and GoldenEye and all these things because that was what gamers were experiencing. It was this mind-blowing, like, oh my gosh, games will never be better, guys.
What is this? Yeah, I will say that that's the only system I ever rented was a Nintendo 64.
Nintendo.
Yeah.
For what game, Ryan?
I was like, actually for
Perfect
no, it's for GoldenEye.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's
You're
not so
darn
bad
right
now,
it
is
was
it,
for
Ryan?
GoldenEye.
Yeah.
And I remember like, this isn't very good. No, I'm kidding.
No, boo. Get out of
No,
here.
I think now I will say though, Josh, I know you. I know because you're a 64 guy, but didn't the PlayStation come out a year before the 64?
I don't know, dude.
My
My time
came
memory's
out
terrible.
It came out a few years before, Ryan.
Did
Wasn't
it
it
really?
95 and 97 or something like that?
I believe so. Yeah, because I had this on my list too. It was specifically 2D to 3D and PlayStation were kind of like my lumped together category. But yeah, I remember being in maybe 9th or 10th grade or something in the mid 90s, and a neighbor of mine had a PlayStation, and I went over and watched him play Resident Evil for the first time.
Oh,
And I was like,
yeah.
I couldn't even comprehend it. You know, it was like bringing somebody from the Stone Age into modern day technology. And I was like, what is going on? Like, how is this even possible?
Yeah.
But yeah, same generation, you know.
Yeah, it's 2 years difference. You're right. So, I mean, I guess we have to give credit to the PlayStation. Part of that is, and that goes along with this, John, and what you mentioned with the Sega CD, is these consoles made the leap to CD gaming. Like, they use CD-ROMs, which I have a little bit of a conversation on for if we have time a little bit later. But, I mean, the leap from cartridges to CD-ROM changed gaming forever, and I think this is why we see this with the PlayStation. The Nintendo 64 used or am I thinking of the GameCube? I'm thinking of the GameCube that used the little mini CD.
Yeah, that's GameCube.
Because the N64 was still cartridge based at that time. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to wonder how Nintendo packed so much into a cartridge.
That's a good point when you think about it.
Yeah, I mean, if there's one thing they know, it's how to pack something into a little game. I mean, how does the Nintendo Switch?
Yeah, how does the Switch do that?
I mean, I'm not I'm this is not a slander to Nintendo games at all, but let's just take Tears of the Kingdom, because that's one of the most massive games available on the Switch. How you can fit Tears of the Kingdom into this teeny little card that it's wizardry, man. It's like dark magic somehow.
It is
Nintendo's dark magic.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, that leap in consoles, I think, is incredible. Now, there is, because I know there's people out there that are screaming right now, well, what about Xbox and Halo? And dude, we all love Halo. And I mean, when Halo came out, yes, that was a crazy leap forward. I bought an Xbox simply to play Halo.
Yep.
That was an expensive game to want to experience, but it does not compare to what the PlayStation and the Nintendo 64 did for that just absolutely astronomical launch forward in gaming at the time.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep,
Yeah.
agreed.
All right, we back to you, John?
Yes.
So
that was going to be one of mine. I'm going to take us back in the Wayback Machine again.
Ooh.
Everybody had their first console that they sort of plugged in and, maybe played some games with their friends in the living room and stuff. But who remembers taking their games on the go for the first time?
Not me, because I did not have a Game Boy.
Game Boy, baby.
No.
Game
Dang it,
Boy.
that was on mine.
Yeah. Portable gaming, specifically the Game Boy, and RIP, the Game Gear, which was incredible for its time, even though the batteries only let you play it for like 10 minutes at a time or whatever. But portable gaming, I think, changed the industry in a fundamental way, in that this turned from a hobby that you basically had to be rooted in your living room and stuck to something you could bring with you anywhere. And it turned it into a very versatile hobby too. I mean, it's not like a deck of cards or like Magic the Gathering where you're sort of like stuck playing this same thing. I mean, the options were limitless and remain limitless. I think most people, there are far more mobile gamers out there just by virtue of the fact that everyone has a phone.
Everybody has one.
Yeah.
Right.
everybody, I wouldn't say everybody, but the grand majority of people out there play some sort of game on a mobile device. And that all started with the Game Boy for me.
Do you think that my lack of having a Game Boy is why I have very little interest in like mobile gaming? Because I never had one. I get that was unique at the time because all of my friends had one. Either their parents owned one, their brother had one or something, but they had access to a Game Boy, but I never did. And I was completely content to play my PC because unlike a lot of families, my family always had a computer. My dad was a huge computer guy, so it was just something that I grew up with. And so while my buddies are playing Tetris and Pokemon on a Game Boy, I was playing games like the Sierra games and some of these older PC titles. And it's like, I don't know if this is a case of like, you just don't know what you're missing or you're completely fine with what you've got. But I do wonder, like, would my gaming life have been different if I had gotten into that Game Boy trend? And then would I be much more into the handhelds and the mobile gaming now? It's like the world will never know, but it's one of those pivotal moments where it's like, I could see a movie where it's like, we've got to go back and change Josh into a mobile gamer.
Game Boy, yeah. Here, go lay on the couch. Let's get inside your mind, man. Let's see what went wrong. How does that make you feel?
Yeah, I don't know.
I think there's some legitimacy to, I mean, like all my taste and interests like basically stopped evolving at like age 15. Like I listen to the same exact music. I'm interested in the same exact types of games. You know, I don't know. There's probably something
because
to it.
I love like not mobile gaming but like handheld gaming per se, and so I had an original Game Boy. I had a stack with all little cases for each cartridge, and I had all these different games I could play, so I could go under my blanket at night, or if I'm being babysat at some event with my parents and I was off in the corner playing Pokemon, and it was just such an experience. So there is the nostalgia factor, but it's also that ability to just play wherever, like what do you mean I can't? I'm over here playing video games. Like, you can take me wherever, Mom.
I'm playing Mario Brothers on the bus.
Yeah. I'm playing Simpsons and cruising around on a skateboard as Bart. Like, this is awesome.
Yeah, just keep rubbing it in, guys. It's cool. It's cool.
I did have that too. I had Game Boy and basically mobile gaming as well, like the explosion of that. And I think it did transition too with how powerful our phones have become. Like, there's just, I mean, think of how big these industries are there's 80-90% of the world. Like, if you ask them what Angry Birds or like Candy Crush is, they're going to know, and so that's just how that has just grown from the handheld gaming, transition naturally to our phones because they're just so powerful. But yeah, that's a good pick, man.
Do you have any others, Ryan?
Yeah, I got one that, cause we're talking about just big kind of things that changed gaming or a big leap forward or something that made a big difference. And so I'm going to go with one that, it may not always be a good thing, but I'm going with live service gaming.
Okay.
So the addition of live service,
double-edged sword.
It is a double-edged sword.
What it changed. Yeah. I mean, you have the ability to have something to where it's not just packaged, signed, delivered, and it's done. That game's done. And if you love it or if there's problems, too bad. Like, now they're able to change things, tweak things, update stuff, but also it includes everything that comes with it because they got to pay those people to do all those things. And then microtransactions come into play, all that stuff. So I think it was a substantial shift in the gaming world, good or bad, however you want to look at it.
Dude, that's really crazy that you bring that up because I think as gamers, and our initial reaction kind of says it all, right? Like live service gaming, and we both go like, ooh. But objectively, if you look at what live service gaming brought us, it brought us games that evolve. We went from the days of you bought a game, you played it, you beat it, that was it, you moved on to the next game. And with live service gaming, you got games that never ended. Yeah. They just kept going. And that was a new thing for gamers at the time. And I think there's a reason that the early success of this is still, affecting gaming to this day, because gamers went, I can find a game that I love that I will never run out of.
Yeah.
And as, like you said, it comes with a lot of negatives, but at the same time, it came with a lot of positives early on too. So that's a good pick, man. I don't really have any more big things. I do have a couple games that because I tried to think of like, is there a game that just felt like it was so far ahead of its time? You know,
okay.
As an old guy, I'm gonna say it right for a lot of people because the last time I mentioned this, I caught some flack for this. So it's a Deus Ex. You know, but that game changed gaming for it was so far ahead of its time. This is the game that kind of catapulted the freedom of choice, consequences to your actions and the decisions you make. It's sad that you know, that series kind of fell off, but that was one. And then I know this one comes with a ton of baggage with it, but to me, Cyberpunk 2077 was that leap forward that we had been hoping for in games for so long to kind of go, what's the next evolution? Now, they completely botched the release of Cyberpunk 2077, but if you play it today, I think you get that glimpse of going like, this is the future of gaming. Like, this is what it could be like. Night City is incredible. The choices in that game, the graphics, all of the different systems kind of coming into play, I think was a glimpse forward on that too. Do you guys have any games that kind of stand out to you as like feeling like, I mean, Crysis was the other one that's kind of like the obvious choice where every game in the world was compared to Crysis for its like graphical ability at the time. But are there any games that jump out to you guys?
There's one that stands out to me. It's actually a Sega Saturn game. Do you guys remember Knights at all by any chance?
Is that the one where you're flying on the carpet?
No, you're not on a carpet, but you do fly. That was kind of the, so.
I know which one you're talking about. Maybe it wasn't a carpet, but you do fly around, right?
You fly around, right?
Yep.
And, we mentioned how 3D sort of like changed gaming, and we talked about a lot of, Ocarina of Time and Mario 64 and things like that, where you had kind of like open exploration. But that was the first game to me where I was like, oh, I really have 3 dimensions to play with. Like I can go everywhere with this.
Oh wow,
so that was
the flying was it was so smooth too. It really did give you that freedom of movement feeling that a lot of games just could not capture.
Yeah. I got one. We were actually talking about it today in the Discord with a few people. But the jump in a game from Grand Theft Auto 2 to 3.
Oh yeah.
I had never I played so much Grand Theft Auto 2, and then to go from that to an open world with cars that you can get in and drive, and like you can look at the buildings, and you're in this construction area, and it's like raining, and it's dark and gritty, and you're looking around, and it pans 360, and it was just the biggest jump I had ever seen. Like that just blew me away, blew my socks off.
That's a good call.
It is a very good one. That is a good example as well. So
yeah, I had to make up for GoldenEye.
Yeah. I can't wait for the flack you're going to get.
Oh, I'm excited. I'm so excited.
Oh, man. Guys, this has been a blast, man. It's really neat to look back at. I mean, cloud gaming was one that didn't even cross my mind, that it's like, if you look at it, it sounds like an amazing thing. VR is another one where it's like, cool, this was really neat, but now what? It's really interesting to me to see these jumps forward, or these leaps forward, but then this almost like pullback because nobody's quite sure. It's like there's something there, but we're not quite sure how to make this work, kind of thing. So, I mean, I fully believe that we will. And a virtual reality MMO of high caliber, I think, will absolutely change the world. Like, honestly, I really do think that. I'm ready for it. I wanna live in the Oasis, guys.
Oh,
so
me too.
We'll record our podcast from the Oasis.
Yeah,
we're like, I'm not getting out.
I know. Oh man. So listen, I know there's things that the listeners are going, hey man, but what about this? Come tell us. Come join our Discord. It is an incredible community. We tout this all the time. We have community nights all the time, dude. Halo Infinite Night was an absolute blast, dude. And
no, I'm still recovering, man. Oh my god.
Well,
I received the beating to end all beatings, guys. That was brutal. That was a brutal reintroduction into online Halo for me.
Yeah.
Man.
I love it. But it's funny because like even on social media, there's people that are like, you guys aren't really playing all these games together and getting along. And I'm like, yes, we are, dude. Yeah. People were laughing. Like, I mean, my wife was like, I heard you having so much fun. She's like, I love it when you get to play games with your friends. And it's just like, it is legitimately as good as it sounds. So if you don't believe us, we promise it really is that amazing. So come join our Discord. There is a link in the episode description. If you love what we do and you want to keep this podcast going and you want to support the show, it really does make a huge difference. Please think about supporting the podcast. You can do that over at multiplayersquad.com. It is super easy to sign up. You can cancel very easily at any time. but that support really does go a very long way in helping us keep this content flowing for you all. That's going to do it for this episode. Until next time, happy gaming.
See ya.
Toodles.